Hello and welcome to this very special show on ET Now. This is Campus Budget. I'm Ruchi Bhatia, and over the next 30 minutes we will be talking to young India on what their expectations are of the maiden budget of Nirmala Sitharaman. I'm joined by the first year students here at Faculty of Management Studies in Delhi University, and we will be asking the young students as to what they want in the upcoming budget. Let me first begin by asking you guys as to what do you think would be the most important thing that you guys will be looking forward to in the upcoming budget. And this is of course coming at a time when there are concerns regarding growth, there are concerns coming in on the slowdown aspect as well. What is it that you will be watching out for?
Most important thing would be to take care of the agrarian crisis that our country is facing right now. It has been a long time since we've taken care of our farmers. We need to take care of them, the first and the foremost thing.
All right, taking care of the farmers is going to be paramount. The Prime Minister is talking about doubling farmers' income as well. Anybody who wants to add to that point?
So we all know that economy is in a dire state right now. GDP has fallen to 5.8%. So right now that we need the economic stimulus to boost the economy. It could be done in two ways. First, a tax cut, boosting the production. And the second thing should be the capital expenditure with the fiscal borrowing, which could in turn boost the economy.
India is a country that is looking to become a $5 trillion economy by 2025 and the third largest economy by 2030. So for that, something really important is to cut the corporate tax rate so that they can invest more in businesses and create jobs. And two other things that really affect the corporate tax is the angel taxation for startups. And the second thing would be the dividend distribution tax, which needs to be reduced so that investors are also given incentives to invest in the business and thereby increasing the workforce of India and eventually the GDP and the economy of the country.
So the government has been talking about a 5 trillion economy for a very long time. What can be done to give the impetus to a $5 trillion economy?
So I think what we need to do is promote entrepreneurship, but also there are a lot of sectors that we talk about, for example, agriculture or the current NPA problems in banks. So I think if we have dedicated funding for startups in those areas, that will help us tackle two problems at the same time.
So promoting entrepreneurship, how important will be that, and what is it that you would like to see in the upcoming budget?
As much as entrepreneurship would be important, I'd also like to stress on the manufacturing sector of India. Steel industry has been one of the most developing industries in India, and we now rank second in the manufacturing of steel in the world. But what's happening in the past 6 months is because US put heavy duties on countries like China, South Korea, and Japan, they have been using India as a dumping ground for steel, which implies that Indian steel hasn't been bought at such rates. So what can happen, what can boost the steel industry of India is a tax cut or increased tariff on the steel which is coming from these countries like China and Korea.
And this is also pretty difficult at a time like this when we are talking about trade wars. But how important will be entrepreneurship? Anybody who would like to add to that?
More than entrepreneurship, I believe that the campaign of Skill India is very important. Skill India was something that was developed by PM Narendra Modi in 2015, but it has not yet achieved its desired target. People these days also lack when it comes to industrial level skills. So even if entrepreneurship improves, you need skilled laborers to actually work in those entrepreneurship or those new startups. And this is why I believe that Skill India should be something to focus on in this budget.
So would you say that the upcoming budget should be looking at enhancing the allocation for Skill India?
Yes, talking about skills and jobs, which are going to be the most important factors determining India's growth in the next few years, I think we should spend a lot more on education. Currently, India is just spending about 3% of its GDP on the education sector. Even other relatively undeveloped countries and most of the developing countries spend way more than that. India is very well on its way on becoming a $5 trillion economy at 2025. And by 2030, India will be having the largest working population in the entire world. So we need to get ready to grab those opportunities and be skill ready for that. So I think spending more on education is the first step towards doing that.
Right. So spending on education, enhancing allocation for Skill India. Anybody on this side who would like to add to this?
For achieving a 5 trillion Indian economy, what we need is a strong manufacturing base. And for that, we need land and labor reforms. Since this government has got a massive majority, we believe that it would have the political capital to push these difficult reforms, which in the short term would yield some negatives, but in the long term would be very positive. We are already seeing manufacturing sector moving out of China, but not coming to India and going rather to Vietnam and Bangladesh. This shouldn't be the case. That should come to us, and we should become part of global supply chains.
That's a very valid point. The fact that India needs to add to the global supply chain. How should India look to become more competitive? That is, of course, the moot issue here.
I think the ease of doing business in India has significantly improved by 65 points according to the World Bank Ease of Doing Business report. But still being at 77th rank, we shouldn't be complacent, and we should still move ahead and develop more competitive and easygoing reforms so that startups are easily possible. Small businesses can grow without government laws holding them back.
You would like to add to that?
Yes, I think India has been home to some of the biggest startups that the country and now the global world is getting to see. Like, for example, Oyo is one of the biggest startups that the young generation is seeing today, with its founder, who's a really young and vibrant entrepreneur, Ritesh Agarwal. So I think that adding to the ease of business index, if we can tread forward on that path and foster the innovation and the capability that the young youth has, I think by educating today's world, we can definitely let the new ideas that exist within today's Indian population come forward, and that would definitely help the country grow.
You know, I would like to ask all of you sitting in the last row here, you guys are first year students, and in the next few years, in fact, by next year, a lot of you will be entering the job market. What are the key concerns? Because, everybody's been talking about how there are not enough jobs available in the market. Is that something that's playing on your minds?
The unemployment rate is at its 4-decade high. So that has been a major concern, and it has been in the mind of like every student in the country. So to solve that, I think the government can invest in the MSME business as well. Like he talked about Skill India campaign, that can also help in reducing the unemployment rate, because it's a matter of quality versus quantity. We might have the highest working force in the world by 2030, but we don't have the quality which is required to get all of them placed. So that is something I think we need to work on.
How important will be to address the job crisis?
Just adding on to the innovation and education element as related to the startups, the main point is not that we don't have the technical acumen in the country, but the point is that it's very concentrated to the top premier schools only. And the reason for that could be that the investment in education sector hasn't happened in the scale that in other sectors it has happened in the past few decades. We have some of the major boosts in agriculture and also in the defense, which should be there, obviously, as a country to progress, even in healthcare, which should be there. But in education sector, we haven't seen a very concentrated amount of budget going into this sector. We should also go to the tier 2, tier 3 schools also, because to encourage innovation, you have to have a very deep penetration.
So what can the government do in a bid to address the issue, the crisis with respect to jobs?
The crisis that we face with respect to jobs has been a serious one, and obviously improving on the ease of doing business can be a huge help. But what we have seen is that the labor laws have been a huge factor in preventing that. A lot of companies have refrained from investing in India. They have obviously, Narendra Modi government has to look forward to working on the labor laws. They have to reform those laws, and to to not lose out on the sentiment of the people, to not lose out on their trust. They should introduce some sort of an alternate structure which protects the laborers in this union budget, so that it lays a foundation for the next 5 years. Since it's the very first budget, it should lay a very strong foundation stone, so that the laborers are protected through some system, and at the same time the labor laws are relaxed a little, which would then further increase the FDI.
So you're basically talking about reducing the compliance burden for ensuring that India becomes a manufacturing hub at the end of the day. How important will be to focus on manufacturing, to focus on MSMEs and startups in the upcoming budget?
So one of the things is the labor force in India, about 50% of it is involved in the agricultural industry, and which is the lowest contributor to the GDP of the country. So on the government focus on the manufacturing and the MSME sector of India, more number of factories and startups in India will lead to more employment. And along with the vocational and the skill training given by the government initiatives launched by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, it will help improve the overall skill of the grassroots level workers and eventually also give rise to more jobs and contribute more to the GDP. And this will also eliminate one of the problems of the agriculture industry, that is disguised labor. Disguised labor leads to low productivity. So we can address both the problems in our economy by focusing on the MSME and the manufacturing sector.
That's a very interesting point that you've raised, the fact that we need to focus on all the allied industries with respect to agriculture. But we will be taking forward that point in just a while from now, but we were talking about MSMEs, we were talking about manufacturing. Anybody would like to add to that?
I think the point made on the manufacturing sector is a very relevant point. The reason why India is found lacking in the manufacturing sector is due to heavy brain drain in the country. Most of the brilliant minds of the country decide to pursue something abroad, mainly in the US. So I think this is a contributing factor that has led to the most brilliant people of India going overseas, leaving India with a lack of resources to adequately pursue manufacturing as a sector. So I think the R&D sector in India should be made more viable for these people, and they should, it should be like made in such a way that these people are forced to stay back in India and have an opportunity to shine in the country itself.
Like he said that only more than half of the population is involved in the agriculture sector, but it only contributes 17% to the GDP. And the rest of the sector we have majorly concentrated towards is the service sector. And it is not employing that much. So we need to shift our focus back to the manufacturing sector. Like after the liberalization, we have skipped the industrialization wagon that the rest of the world was catching on to. So that has been our disadvantage, that we have not concentrated on it that much, because industrialization could have been an employment generator as well as boosting the economy. So we should focus more on that.
And we've been talking about an industrial policy for a very long time. It's never seen the light of the day. You would like to add to that?
So one thing, when we're talking about unemployment, it's not only for us, the educated people, but we also have laborers and a lot of other people in the society. So one thing where the government can invest is through in building the infrastructure. So when you're building the infrastructure, which is really, it's needed in the country, in lots of parts of the country, and it will employ a lot of people. So with construction, we will have people employed, we will have more disposable incomes, and we have a boost of the economy.
You know, we don't see a lot of women entrepreneurs coming in. You were talking about entrepreneurship as well. How can you ensure that we see more women participation in important sectors like startups, like manufacturing?
I think problems like this need to be dealt with from the ground root or the grassroots level. We need to encourage women, we need to encourage girls to go to school, educate themselves, and then further educate their families. It's a very common saying that when you educate a man, but when you educate a woman, you educate an entire family. So once we initiate that culture, I think that will follow its way to the top, and we're already seeing great women already coming up, like Indra Nooyi and others who have been idols to us. And I think for the young population, they'll soon start showing their colors and also adding to becoming young entrepreneurs.
Very, very well put.
The three things which are required for anybody to success in any field is mentorship, support, and role models. So currently there are not many female role models, but that will take care of it if we continue focusing on the other 2 points. So I think that not many women in any sector where they are lagging right now find enough mentors who are supporting them to pursue whatever they want to do. And the other thing, of course, as she mentioned, is it all starts at the grassroots level. We cannot do superficial aesthetic changes and make sure hope for any improvement. The support needs to come from the grassroots level.
On that note, let's take a short break here. We have put the spotlight on the need for jobs, on the need to focus on startups, manufacturing, and promoting women entrepreneurship as well. Over the next 10 minutes after the break, we will be talking about the important issues such as health as well as agriculture. Stay tuned. back. You're watching Campus Budget on ET Now with me, Ruchi Bhatia. We will be talking to the first year students at Faculty of Management Studies in Delhi University over the key issues that Young India is looking forward to in the upcoming budget. Let's talk about healthcare. We have seen in the last couple of days those dreadful stories coming out of Bihar with respect to encephalitis, many children being affected by that. How important will be to focus on healthcare services, making it more available, not just for people in rural areas, but also in terms of allocation?
Recent deaths have shown that there are massive gaps in primary healthcare and secondary healthcare throughout India. Primary health centers should be improved. The cases of absentee doctors should be addressed. More medical colleges should be opened, and medical education should be improved to address that. Whereas in the secondary sector, Ayushman Bharat has been a great step, but we need further more steps need to come along.
I believe that the recent interim budget did not mention a lot about childcare health budget. So I believe that is a area where the government can invest in, and a lot of secondary healthcare schemes they experienced budget cuts. Schemes like prevention of cancer and diabetes, and even strokes. So these are the causes for the maximum amount of deaths in India, and I believe that more investment in these areas will help our country a lot.
With a lot of hospital beds empty and full in some places and nurses not available, a lot of people are not able to get the healthcare facility that they deserve and have to face the consequences. So we need to have a workforce in all the places where the requirement is, so that people get the required treatment.
So are we talking about increased spending in healthcare? Is that what the government should be looking at?
Yes, I think that should be looked at, but we've also seen cases where like the poor people are not getting the minimum amenities in the government hospitals, and they have to go to the private hospitals, and where in hand they don't have that much amount of money. So I think the basic requirements or the infrastructure should be available in the government hospitals too, so that all can avail it.
You know, at one point of time, we were talking about universal basic income. I don't know whether the government has the resources for something like that or not, but how important will be, the issue of providing social security for all?
Social security in the form of universal basic income will provide funds to each and every individual to fund his own healthcare or any sector, be it education or any other issues. Apart from this, government has come up with the Ayushman Bharat Yojana, which is a very good initiative taken by the government. But what the requirement is to instill in with more funds, so that this is a long run initiative rather than just being focused on a short term.
Rightly pointed out by my batchmates that the spending in healthcare is just not enough to meet our goal of reaching a 2.5% contribution to the GDP coming from the healthcare sector. Currently, it is at a mere 1.2%, and healthcare is something very basic that adds on to every aspect of the economy. If someone is healthy, it adds on to the education. They can form a healthy workforce and contribute to their best to the economy. So healthcare is definitely something that needs urgent attention, especially after the epidemic we have seen in Bihar.
So increased, okay, here.
I'd just like to add on, speaking of healthcare, I feel like while we may have, the government, we can see government hospitals everywhere. They have the provisions, they have the machineries, they have everything. But I feel we even lack better implementation, because all of these machineries in the hospitals, a majority of them don't work. So even though you have free healthcare in the government hospitals, a majority of the population have to go to private hospitals to get better facilities. So I feel like a better implementation is also necessary.
I'll also like to add some focus on the healthcare insurance sector. As compared to the other countries like the US and the European countries, where the penetration level of the healthcare insurance which people get is very high, and compare that to India, where almost 80% of the people have insurances for their cars but don't have their insurance for their own and for the family members. So if the healthcare insurance, if the number of people getting healthcare insurance improves, the burden on them that comes onto them in case of a hazard onto themselves will decrease, which will eventually lead to the improvement in the conditions.
And the government, in fact, has been trying by making healthcare insurance more available to the, to the people who are poor or below poverty line. Anything that you would like to add to that?
I'd like to say in the wake of the health, air pollution is a very important thing that we need to handle. A lot of Indian cities are in the top polluted cities of the world. So something like a Air India mission should be implemented so that we have clean air and the health sector can improve.
Right, those were some of the issues that we did speak about with respect to healthcare. But I would like to come to the first point that we were talking about when we began this discussion, and that was the focus on doubling farmers' income, the focus on agriculture, on allied industries. Anybody who would like to add to that?
1.84 lakh crore of farm loans were waived off by the Indian government. We have to understand that these are very attractive for short terms, but in the long term, they are creating a dent in the capital structure of the country. And the help doesn't reach to all of the farmers either. Instead of waiving the farm loans, the government will have to work with the farmers. They will need to increase the infrastructure and help them earn double of the income that they're earning instead of waiving their loans off.
You know, agriculture is also a state subject. The center cannot do much. Anybody who wants to add to that?
So first of all, we need to understand that in India, the 86% of land holding is way too small for the large scale productivity. So we are facing a very important bottleneck in the terms of agricultural productivity. Then next comes whether our youth are interested in agriculture or not. Only 1.7% of the youth in the rural outset are interested in agriculture. So in this way, we are not going to increase the agricultural productivity. So we need to find out the allied activity in which we can see how our agriculture produce can be converted into the allied product and through which it can be sold. So this is something I really believe it can change the way the farmer's income is presently there.
That's a very interesting point.
I think education of farmers in the perspective of like how innovation can be implemented, like how new techniques can be bought in the farming sector is very important for the development of the particular sector. Also, we should be looking at the exports because recently I have seen that the farming exports have been decreasing year on year, and we need to focus more on them and need to bring on provisions. Like we have been having a lot of international relationship meetings, but the farming sector hasn't been seeing any effect of that particularly. Yeah.
Even state governments can do their initiatives at a very small level and teach new techniques to the farmers which increase the yield and boost their income. This would make them self-sufficient and they would not need any kind of loans or any kind of waiver from the government, which will help them to stand on their own and progress further.
A very important point when we consider agriculture and farmer crisis is that the water scarcity problem that is coming up in India, we have that problem in Chennai, and it is predicted to come up in states of Haryana and Punjab in the future, in the very near future. So instead of working on short-term goals, the Narendra Modi government should should allocate funds to the longer-run solutions like implementation of canal systems, irrigation systems, proper irrigation systems and water canals to feed these areas which are going to face water scarcity. Apart from that, setting up of cold storages and installing a better transportation system in place is very important. Therefore, the emphasis on long-term investment on farmers is more important, and the first year of the union budget of the NDA2 government is a very good time to do that.
You know, that's a very interesting point. We have seen how Chennai has been reeling under severe water shortage, and this is coming in at a time when the Prime Minister himself is talking about making water available in every tap. This is going to be my last question. We are at a time when the Narendra Modi government in their second stint have come up with a Jal Shakti ministry as well. How can that potential be tapped? One last answer. Who would like to take that?
So first of all, we have a monsoon, and most of the water we receive in monsoon is being wasted away. We need to develop water conservation because our monsoons are very unpredictable. Being the tropical country, we don't know whether when will the monsoon will hit. We don't even know when El Nina and La Nina will hit. So it does impact our monsoon very much. And we receive our major rainfall through rainfalls. So I believe through that water conservation, we can really do well. Apart from it, in India, we have seen as a culturally we are not designed to save water. So we can do that also, and that will really help us to save every drop of water so that it may be diverted to the places where there is scarcity of water.
So better healthcare facilities, focus on agriculture reforms, and lastly, ensure that water is saved and made available to people in India. Those are some of the demands, the wish list of Young India. Many thanks for watching.